What's going on, guys? Hope you're all doing well. I've brought myself today to the banks of Loch Lomond at our beautiful spot near Balloch Castle. Basically, this is our little beach, the SK beach. If you were to have caught one of the Lomonds on release, we packed a bunch of these stones, these little pebbles, in with a select few of the Kendamas. So this is the beach that they have come from. So if you manage to get yourself one of these, this is literally where we picked them up. There was never anything sort of too deep about it. It was just an idea that we had to be able to give you guys one little piece of Scotland, had you never been here before, or maybe you have been here before. Yeah, regardless, if you copped a Lomond, you know that's been designed in Scotland, and if you manage to get one of these little pebbles, you have a little piece of Scotland as well. You might have noticed that I have this little tote bag with me. I decided to bring along the prototypes from the Lomond design process. We went through 6 prototypes in total to come up with the Lomond design, and I just wanted to sort of talk to you guys about the different renditions. So this is the very first one. This didn't make it very far within the production process for obvious reasons. There's a lot wrong with it. This was back in 2019 when I first started, when I first opened up Fusion 360. That was the software that I used. I opened it up and I actually tried to copy a TK16. That was my first sort of attempt. So I got the electronic calipers that you can get on Amazon. And then I literally just went round the Ken and like measured all the different parts of it and came up with a design in Fusion. And you know, it looked very basic, very clunky. That's not what I got produced. That was just my like test to try and get to know the software. But after that, I spent some time designing this. And obviously I made some mistakes initially. For one, the base cup is obviously way too big. And there's also a weird rock when you put the Tama in handle style. And I really didn't want that. I wanted it to have, you know, your proper points of contact. So yeah, I had this made, and I think I ordered like something silly like 10 prototypes in like 5 different types of wood. Later down the line, I realized that you really don't need that much. If you're thinking of getting into like making your own shape, you know, order 3 that's enough to like get you, you know, seshing one, maybe send one to like a friend or a teammate. But you really don't need 10. I spent a lot of money that I didn't need to spend on a bunch of different woods for a prototype that never went past stage 1. So that was an immediate lesson learned. But yeah, this is V1. Okay, so this is V2. Essentially what I did here was completely redesign the sword. I actually liked the cups from version 1, so I decided to just keep them. So the cups are actually the exact same, I'm pretty sure, other than maybe a mill here or there. But they're basically the exact same cups. And then the sword I decided to redesign from the ground up. Quite literally, you start in the process from here, and then in the software I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but what I did was build it up to the top, because you get your top and then you kind of build it up that way. So yeah, anyway, I you know, no booty hole at this point. I just wanted to get the shape right. I completely refigured the ring style. Before on V1, I went for quite a sharp ring style, and I think to be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really know what I wanted. For V2, I decided to completely redesign it, and actually took inspiration from the Aurum Ken from Terra Kendama. The Aurum I thought had a really cool like profile. It was quite. There's a bird shouting. It's quite unique how there's like a swoop here, And I sort of wanted something like that, but that was also functional. So I came up with this. So this was made probably around 2020, maybe just before lockdown, because I know one of the reasons why this whole process took over 3 years was because of lockdown, and obviously closures, and like international waterways were, you know, disrupted, and all the rest of it. So this came probably around 2020 at the start. Initially, I did like it, but it's upon like playing it not even for that long, playing it for a couple hours, I realized that the ring is actually way too small. There's way too much of a gap when you put the tama, and I wanted it to somewhat like lock on. Okay, so this is version 3. This was probably around 2021 because obviously peak lockdown, nothing was open, but I was still designing stuff and like, you know, trying to figure this out. There was like a 6-month lead time for getting prototypes. So anyone who's used Unru know that their prototype lead time is significantly less than doing a run. To the point where it's like almost like within a month you may be able to get a couple prototypes made. So the lead times during lockdown were over 6 months for me, bearing in mind that SK is a small brand. Maybe they were prioritizing bigger companies, I'm not sure. But anyway, this is what we were working with. Around 2021, this finally got into my hand, and as you can see, it just feels a little bit more together already at this point. I added a booty hole because I knew at this point I wanted to start trying to slap some loons on this thing, and I also wanted to see if we could make it, well, the idea behind the Ken was to make it really balanced anyway, so we didn't want it to be too sling and tap heavy. We wanted people to be able to do good lunar tricks on it as well. So I added that base cup hole in. I also deepened this section ever so slightly, so I increased this diameter, essentially extruding the handle stall by like 1 mil or something, maybe even less, like 0.5 mil. But what that did was it meant that the bevel was sitting way better onto the handle stall, and it wasn't sliding around all over the place, because in V2 there was not enough of a step there, but in V3 I decided to increase that extrusion by not actually increasing the size of the handle. I just decreased the handle section by about 1 mil. For all intents and purposes, I thought at that point that this was finished. I was super happy with this, and obviously it was during lockdown, so I couldn't exactly make a batch, but I was quite happy with the design. It was sort of becoming what I wanted it to become, which is ultimately a balanced Ken and something that's super fun to play for not only like my play style, but anyone who's trying to, I guess, achieve some kind of balanced play style. The only thing I decided to change was the booty hole, so I made it much deeper. I felt that it wasn't slapping quite as hard as I'd wanted to, which if you're not a Kendama player, that sounds ridiculous. But if you are a Dama player, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These loons that I was still relying quite heavily on the luck of the draw, essentially, the Serrado and sword weight being optimal for loons in order for the previous version to really feel loony. So in order to sort of eradicate that and somewhat like guarantee that the loons would always be prime, I just deepened the booty hole a lot, and that made a huge difference. So this brings us up to just before BKO 2022, and I felt that this was the final form. This was it. After years of you know, waiting and designing and trying out and spending money, I thought finally we are here. Alas, 4 to 6 weeks before BKO. Bearing in mind I was I had bought enough of these for the whole team to use at the comp, and I was confident, you know, like the SK guys are going to go and shred the comp with the new proto, it's going to be sick, blah blah blah. And then suddenly we realized that there was an issue, and I'll talk about that in the next version. All right, so this is version 5. This was basically it. This was a rushed job. This was post-COVID, so we didn't have the lead times to deal with. I knew we were going to be able to get it turned around quite fast if I stepped it up. Basically, yeah, 4 weeks before BKO, I realized, or I should say actually, Marius realized that it didn't wing. The previous versions didn't wing really at all. And this was obviously pretty devastating. I don't do a lot of wing tricks, so I didn't catch it when I was testing it. During trickless training, we realized that the wing just kept slipping off and we couldn't figure out why. So, you know, what we did was take Kens that we knew were working well for wing. The thing that they had that we didn't have was a straight cup edge. And we figured that's all that needed to change, because that was allowing for the bevel edges to grip the sharper edge created by having a flat top. So we went with it. In my hand is a final version. This is V6. So what makes this different from version 5 is 1 mil. A single millimeter was added, and at the cost of hundreds of pounds, might I add. You know, but it's these things. It means I can sleep soundly at night, knowing that I changed that 1 mil. So what I did was I realized that the cup edges, I don't know what happened, but the cup edges were different sizes in the V5. In V5, the big bird edge was, I believe, 9.5, and the small was 10.5. And obviously, well, I say obviously, most people might not have even noticed, but it's something that I would notice every time I'd play the Kendama. So I decided, yep, it's worth adding that 1 mil to the cup edge. They should be the exact same size now. And honestly, when I received the V6, there was a sigh of relief. Not only from myself, but probably from a few of my teammates as well, who are really eager for this project to sort of basically go into the next stage, i.e. producing models for people to buy. But I was like, nope, we need to change that 1 mil, so I got that changed. And yeah, this is the Lomond shape. A few things to note on the design, the kind of simplicity of the branding. I am a sucker for kind of minimalism styling, I guess. I like things that are kind of clean and nice looking, and I also didn't want just another logo on the kind of typical place that logos on Kendamas go. I wanted it somewhere different. So the only way that sort of made sense to me was to slap the Lion logo on the underbird. The tamas on this model are 61mm, but you know, we will be doing 60, 62 as well in the future. These are 61mm. The cups, as per sort of my findings when I was making the TK16 sketch in Fusion 360, I realized that the big, small and base dimension or size increments are equal. That is to say, the difference is always the same. So on our Kendama, these are 44mm, it goes down to 40mm, and then it goes down to 36mm. The overall height is 16.5 centimeters. Traditionally, Kendamas are 16 centimeters. However, I felt something that was just a fraction longer or taller would make for easier jugs and taps and slings, and I believe the extra height does allow that those sorts of tricks to become more landable. The booty hole as it is fairly deep. It's because of the length, the extra height. There's going to be a lot of weight down this end of the Ken in order to make the Ken a balanced shape, i.e. good for slings and lunars, which are kind of on opposite ends of the tricks, the spectrum regarding your Kendama setup. I wanted a Kendama that was going to be able to do both of these fairly equally. And finally, just to mention about sort of stalls and whatnot, it works, you know. The cups are nice and flat and they're not too skinny. It is in keeping with the kind of slender nature of the overall shape itself. So they're not big chunky things basically, but they do work. You can get all your stall points, and you know, wing actually works now, which is great. And yeah, the ring, after you've broken in the bevel for maybe a day, you'll find that it just sits there, which is exactly what I wanted. And also with the handle, you've got your 3 points of contact there, allowing for kind of optimal grip. So that's basically it. Thanks if you've gotten this far in the video. I know my voice has probably gone on and on and on, but I hope you found that quite sort of, I guess, interesting or insightful if you're hoping to make your own Kendama shape, if you're a Kendama company or just an individual who's looking to get their own shape. The only thing you'll need is an electronic caliper setup that you can get for 20 quid off Amazon, and a free trial to Fusion 360 or some other software. And you can get started. So yeah, all the best. Thanks very much for watching, and peace.